We are arriving, cribs on driving. Come on. We are arriving, cribs on driving. Let's go. What makes them thrive? What gives them drive? Keeps us occupied, it can't be denied. Diane and Fabi taking you for a ride. Front door to backyard, bedside to fireside. Showing you things to get you inspired. So sit back and relax and take a look inside. We are arriving, cribs on driving. Come on. We are arriving, cribs on driving. Yeah. We are arriving, cribs on driving. Get real. We are arriving, cribs on driving.
Welcome, season number 4, episode 6. This is Thriving Cribs live from Korea, from the manufacturers of Jeuveau.
Amazing. This is where it's made, guys. We're in Daewoo plant, which is the plant where Jeuveau is manufactured. It's here outside of Seoul, Korea, and Evolus was really intricately involved with designing this plant. This plant wasn't even up and running. What was it, 2014?
2015, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so this is a very new facility. And you really learn more about someone when you go to their home. And that's really why we put together cribs to walk people into people's homes so that you can learn more about the products that we use every single day in practice. And the consumer, I believe, is getting more and more sophisticated. They want to know where their products are made, the people behind the products. They don't want some like arbitrary, image or corporation that they're buying from, but they want to know the people behind the brands that they're buying from.
You know, I remember about 5 years ago when Jeuveau first hit the market and David Motezetti and his team started Evolus.
Right.
And everyone's like, well, this is the 4th toxin to enter into the US market. Do we really need another toxin? Everyone's kind of questioning.
A 900 kilodalton toxin,
Yeah.
right.
And people were like skeptical. And I remember that David kind of looked at it with his team and they found a creative way to bring it to the market and work with the customers and consumers and position it much differently than everyone else. And it kind of makes me think about Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs didn't create computers. There was already good computers out there.
IBM.
Yes, and
right.
Dell, but he brought
Dell.
Creative design, user experience, along with great electronics, and he birthed Apple computers. I kind of feel like that with David and the team at Evolus, what they've done here, especially of all that we've seen, all the user experience, like it's really like a fun brand to work around.
Right.
And it's a high quality product. And that's why we're here, is to see the high quality product.
Right, because it's more than, what we've learned is more than just, I mean, they've got amazing marketing. No one's going to deny that. But we've learned that it's more than just an amazing product and great marketing. It's also the culture of what David has created at Evolus and how that trickles through with the customers and the relationships that they have with their customers. I mean, people really enjoy working with Evolus, and that's really why we're here today, to find out why. And so in just 5 years, they've taken over 12.1% of the market share in the United States, which is so impressive. Other toxin brands that have been available for many more years beforehand have not been able to really take up that market share. And what I've always loved about him is it's never been about competing. It's really been about more, like increasing the pie, not taking more pie from someone else.
And also creating his own space.
Yes, creating his own, yes, exactly. And so obviously, you still have to have a great product. We know that in aesthetics, right? It's like you can be all the marketing that you want, but there's a lot of fluff out there. You still have to have really, really good product. And that's the reason why we're here today, to bring the product to you. And so that everyone can really see all that is involved in creating such a purified, precise toxin, the high pure technology, to you and what patients are
And where does it all start, though? There's a creative design in California.
Right.
And this is where the product is manufactured, but California is really where the creative engineering happens.
Right, but you have to make sure that you have a facility that's able to execute that at the standard that it's being executed at. And so that's why we're here today. But before we walk into their crib, we're going to take you to their headquarters, their original crib in Newport, California, Southern California, my home, so that you can see a little bit more and learn a little bit more about how this company is making a splash. And it's more than just an amazing product, as well as really creative marketing. It's about culture. And so we've got Jessica, who's going to be walking us through the culture behind Evolus.
Hi.
Welcome to Evolus.
Hi.
I'm Jessica Novak.
Thank you so much.
Jessica, Steve, Diane, nice to have you.
Jessica.
Nice to meet
Thank you so much.
Can I welcome you to our crib?
Yes,
We
I
are
would love
super
that.
excited to see this.
Except today, it's a little bit cloudy for California. Normally you can see Catalina out these windows.
Really?
I love Catalina Island.
But this is our kitchen, and this is where so much of like our secret ingredient, our secret sauce that make our culture here so special comes to life. So hopefully I could tell you a little bit
So when you say
about
the
it.
secret sauce, what do you mean by that? The secret
We believe
ingredients?
our culture is our competitive advantage.
And you're the
I'm the
chief
chief-
culture officer.
Yes, I lead HR,
I mean,
culture.
I love that. Tell me a little bit more about like what that means and why go to the lengths of having a chief culture officer for a company.
Culture is extremely important to us, and we hire the best and the brightest talent, but it has to be aligned with our values and our culture to make this organization a top workplace. We've been named a top workplace in Orange County 5 years in a row.
Great.
And we are all about creating an experience and creating an environment where employees can thrive and bring their authentic selves to work. But yes, we have a culture book.
Oh, wow.
And we have some gifts for
Aw,
you
thank
all.
you.
Dr. Bobby, this one is
Amazing.
for you. And
Swag bags. I mean, you guys are really amazing. Talk about
team here.
culture building.
Yeah.
Yeah, with some swag. I love it.
so maybe I can tell you about some of the things we
Please.
do. in this
Yes,
room.
yeah, I love it.
So this room, we host a lot of fun events. So all of our culture is centered around 4 values.
Okay.
It sounds kind of cheesy, but the acronym spells out GIFT. So it's grit. All of the employees that we hire and all the things that we do, we recognize that our employees brought passion and perseverance. So grit is really important. So
Yep,
the
I
G.
love it.
The I is impact. So ensuring that all of our employees are able to create an impact. And being in a smaller, fast-growing organization, it's critical. Our employees are making an impact every day. But
Okay.
every quarter, we have what's called #Evolus Talks, and it's not your traditional town hall. And it's a great forum for our employees to hear directly from leadership on what's happening and have that open dialogue, which leads me to our last value, which is transparency. So we are transparent with our customers, with our employees, all alike. We're always about creating the experience for our employees, for our customers. It's all, we look at it all through the same lens.
If there's one thing you could say that's most important about creating culture, like, could you give a tip? Like, what would it be? Is it to be heard? Is it to be valued? Is it?
Yeah, I think it's creating an environment where everybody can belong and feel like they can bring their authentic selves here. And we try to create that on a daily basis and infuse some of those other elements like fun to break up all of the hard work. But it's great to be with a fast-growing organization. We've added 40% to our workforce the last 2 years in a row.
Wow.
And so it's evolving and it's growing.
Well, wonderful. Can you share and take a look around? Can we
Absolutely.
look? Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's do it.
And how many people work here?
In this building, we have this floor.
Okay.
There's 100 of us.
Wow.
And you asked the question earlier, how do we get people to work here? And look, we've got these.
Did you see this?
Why don't you take a shot?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I mean, listen, I play soccer, not basketball, but we'll try. You see?
Okay, I'm not giving up.
All right.
Oh, there you did not give up.
Or maybe you're surfing. Look at that.
Yes. So our we're a California company, California-based company, which I know you'll talk to David and Rumi more about today. But yeah, we created these surfboards for one of our creative campaigns, and some of our talent was out there on the beach, and surfers in the area were coming up to the team saying, "Where did you get these boards? These are so cool." And I know you'll get to experience our injection room a little bit later today, but this is one of the things we do for our employees too. Our employees have access to free injections on a quarterly basis on site here.
All right, that was fantastic. I think I learned a lot. I'm feeling very cultured right now. Do I look cultured? I look cultured, don't I?
That's questionable. But nevertheless, I'm inspired just by the creativity and the beauty, the aesthetics of this place. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been really a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're here.
Welcome.
Finally.
It's good to see you
Good to have
guys.
you here. Nice to see you.
love. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for inviting us to your crib. So we had such a great time back in California. We learned so much about the culture of Evolus and Jeuveau, behind the brand. I was really impressed by the the culture book. Like that really stunned me.
I've never seen a culture book before.
Neither have I.
I was telling Steve we should have a culture book so you can understand me better. My culture.
Then we're gonna need a book on how to understand you.
Yeah. We should have a whole culture book. I love it.
Yeah, okay, we'll work on that
We'll
next,
work on
next
that.
time. But
That can be your 5th book.
6 books.
Okay, 6
Okay,
books.
but who's counting?
All right.
So this gift concept I really like a lot. And it kind of stands behind your culture, which I thought was really unique. The grit, the impact, the fun, and the transparency. And like that kind of seeps through from the top all the way through all the staff to all the people part of your product and all the way to the consumer.
And to the customer.
Yeah.
To us.
Yeah, I mean, we've been curating the experience from inception, right? And one thing that I think a lot of your audience doesn't know is in 2013, we broke ground here to build this brand new state-of-the-art facility that you guys are going to get to tour that we've never exposed before. So it's been years in the making, building the company's culture, building the manufacturing plant, and Rui, of course, has been a part of it from the very beginning.
One of the things we liked about Korea, which we noticed yesterday, and especially Sabrina here being a consumer of aesthetics, we went shopping yesterday.
Yes.
The fashion, the aesthetics here, it's a priority in this culture.
Right, aesthetics is a priority in this culture. I mean, the penetration rate is like 22%, I believe, just with fillers. With, for such a small market, how many consumers are actually getting aesthetic procedures done? I mean, by 21, you get a bleph in this country, which is amazing. I mean, I know you were even considering doing things when we were walking around yesterday.
You mean like starting a practice here?
Well, you're right, though. It is one of the most advanced aesthetic markets in the world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And when you look at markets like the United States, which has generally been further behind, we're narrowing the gap with each new generation of consumers that's viewing this like a beauty treatment. And that is how it's viewed here in Korea.
Yes.
And so it's a great analog for us. And you're also seeing how cultures are seeping in globally. I know you guys cover that a lot, but Korea's played a big part, K-beauty, in how this has evolved in the views of beauty. And so it's been interesting because in 2012, when this agreement was signed, that wasn't the thought behind it. It's evolved into it, and it's shaped our culture, certainly.
And then why team up with the manufacturing company here? Is Korea unique for manufacturing neuromodulators?
Really?
So we looked all over. Korea was a natural place to come, again, just because of the focus on aesthetics. So they have a lot of expertise here in terms of dealing and creating botulinum toxins. Daewon was a natural one for us. We prioritized the 900 kilodalton. And Daewon is a very well-known company in the pharmaceutical field here. And then importantly, they also had really impressive data in their phase 3 Korean studies. And we thought we could build off that in creating Jeuveau.
And when you say impressive data, like I know I participated in some of your clinical trials. You also had a non-inferiority against the market leader at the time, which shows that, and perhaps earlier onset and duration up to 4 months.
Yeah. That's right. It was when we did our large study, a phase 3 study, the thing that we were really happy to see was the consistency with what we saw here in Korea. They did a non-inferiority study here. And then when we reproduced it in the United States, it was 540 patients. Most of them got drug. Botox did really well at 87.2%. And we came in at 83%. Sorry, the other way around. It was about 82.8% for Botox, and we came in at about 87.2%, and we hit non-inferiority, of course.
But I think what people don't recognize is that in order to have consistency in result, you have to have consistency in product, right? And this toxin molecule is very, very sticky. The way that it actually is manufactured plays a very important role in how it ends up delivering a result every single day in our practice. And so we can't take that for granted. Otherwise, you do have unsatisfied customers if you don't have consistency in results with every single time that they get treated, right? Then they want to switch. And so that's really why we're here, so that people can understand what it takes to make a toxin that is so precise, so that it consistently delivers the result every single day in our practices for our patients.
I also want to mention like how you guys partner with the physicians or the providers' offices. And that's really unique because you have a different relationship than some of the other companies that have a therapeutic component to their products or to their companies. So that it gives you some latitude when you market with us. And I know that within my practice, we did billboards with Evolus, and that was kind of unique, and it was fun to do that.
That's what you guys have become known for, is that kind of, more edgier marketing and that support that you give your partners.
Yeah, I think the focus here at the plan has been around quality of product. In the end, you can advertise, but if you don't deliver consistency, to your point, then you don't have a product you can build on. And so credit to the team that stood up this manufacturing plant. And you're going to get a chance to see, you saw it on our chalkboard in the office, now you're going to get a chance to see it real time. And it really is impressive. It's brand new, it's state of the art in terms of how we manufacture. And we brought that innovation on the marketing side as well by being cash pay focused. And you're seeing that on full display across the United States now. Thousands of campaigns running at any given time, whether that's digital, it's billboards in major cities, small cities, or it's in the form of television spots. And I think we want to be forward thinking. We want to push this category into the beauty space. And I think part of it is here. It starts here. It's the raw ingredients, and then it works itself all the way in front of how the consumer sees it. That full spectrum is what builds an innovative company. And so we're really proud of what we've built, and we're thrilled that you're here to see it behind the scenes.
Thank you so much for having us. I mean, to your point, David, you can have all the most creative marketing, but if you don't have a great product in the end, it's not a sustainable business model. I think that happens not just for aesthetic providers, but also for businesses as well. And so we're super excited for Rui to walk us through the manufacturing plant and to really take a deeper dive. I know we're going to take a deeper dive on the science momentarily, but before we go there, I think you guys had a moment to catch up in Newport. And so we're going to be learning a little bit more on how you show up differently to all the practices and all the partners that you have, both in the US, but outside of the US. Canada, you're also available now in Australia, Germany,
Spain,
Austria.
Italy, Nuceiva outside the US.
So yeah, so take it away, guys.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Hey, bud, good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks for having us to your crib.
Yeah, you got a chance to meet Jessica,
We
learn
did.
a little bit about the company.
You always knew David would have culture, you know, what he was doing. Style, culture.
Everything.
Yeah.
Take some notes, babe.
So,
I'm just joking.
already, unbelievable.
I like it. We're in a good start here.
You know, why don't you go hang out with the science?
I'm nerd out before I get like.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So you'll get a chance to show me around a little
Yeah,
bit. 'Cause
should we do
I really
it?
want to see everything. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to your Korea office,
Yeah.
but I've never been here before. And I
Okay.
understand this is where everything is. This is where all the creativity, all the design, all the things that give the personality to Evolus starts here.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you know, when we first started, what kind of took the market a bit by storm was the fact that we're the first company that was dedicated to cash pay aesthetics. And so as you walk around here, what that means is the team that's sitting here is very different than what you would find inside a pharmaceutical company. So you have a digital engineering team. So for our customers now that use our app to purchase product, to give consumer loyalty benefits, it's all at their fingertips. We built that all in-house.
So you're doing all that engineering of the app is here.
It's all here. We developed it in-house and we designed it in-house. So as you know, we have a 360-degree view of the water here. So it's a beautiful space. So the next dimension is sort of the creative element of the company.
Okay.
So I do believe like the energy that's inside this office emanates out into every practice. And it's our design mentality of how we built Jeuveau. It's a modern, edgy brand. The marketing team sits here. All the ideation you see around
I always love the marketing teams.
11s.
It's always fun hanging out with them.
This is where the energy in the company comes, where marketing, creative, digital, they all come together. This room right here is Santorini.
Santorini.
Now,
Wait,
now we're
that's
going
Greece.
to Greece. Hey, we're running out of beautiful spaces, and this view right here does kind of remind you of being in Santorini overlooking
A little bit.
the volcanoes there. We're missing a volcano in the middle of the water,
And the black sand
we
beaches,
couldn't
but
have
hey,
that.
that's not bad.
But you could see like the creative energy in here of what's to come. Anything from website changes the team's making. We have a 5-year anniversary coming up. And so you're getting a teaser of what 5 years of Jeuveau on the market will look like. And we're proud of what we've accomplished. I mean, this has been the fastest growing brand for 3 consecutive years in the US. So here we are. This is, you know, half this side was all the marketing organization and digital. Why don't we have something to drink before we take a seat? So we try to foster an environment where we make use of the space. As a matter of fact, we bring customers to this office frequently. We do a lot of meetings in here. We love our space. We also think you can tell the story better in your own home.
So tell me, 5 years ago, you were at another company, and those who know you were rising through the ranks so fast there. You were a superstar, and you pick up and leave to come here. And Evolus was just getting started. Mm-hmm. Why?
I saw an opportunity of a market that was shifting from this category being viewed as more of a medical procedure historically to this mindset of this younger generation seeing it as a beauty treatment. And it's not an insignificant shift. Markets go through shifts maybe every decade or a couple decades, and I think we are living that now, where this younger generation of millennials, who we believe now represents the majority of users in the US. More than 50% of the market is millennial in toxins. She wants a treatment that's a 15 to 20 minute procedure that she can book the day before or a couple days before. They don't want to book out a month in advance, block 2 hours to go in for a doctor visit. That shift creates an opportunity, and that's what I was really excited about. I was aware of this technology, and it's a high quality product. Ultimately, that's the starting point to building any company. You met Rui earlier.
Yes.
Rui and I have known each other for many years. I knew that this technology would get approved. It was prior to approval, and it's a differentiated asset. I mean, the technology, Jeuveau, is a very high quality neurotoxin. But to be able to then take that, put it into a dedicated cash pay business, very tech forward, marketing that's edgy, that targets this younger generation, it was a big open opportunity. If you're going to build a company in aesthetics, you have to add value differently than what others have done very well, by the way.
So what's your value add that's different? Is it that you're going after a different market, that you're heavy tech focused, that you're more creative?
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's not one dimension. I would say the first is on the product side. What we've learned about Jeuveau is it's a highly precise neurotoxin. And so that means injectors, as they use this product, they're not making trade-offs in terms of the quality of the product, the efficacy of the product, but they're also finding that the precision gives them the ability to do things that they didn't expect with the brand. So we've invested heavily in medical education in order to drive that. You've been a part of some of them, our cadaver investments, and we do that all around the country. We've also invested heavily in medical education with hands-on training. And there's probably nothing more important in this category than helping the providers deliver better outcomes. And I think as manufacturers, we have that role. I think medical societies play that role. But collectively, I think it's about improving the outcomes. And
so you're customer focused?
Very much. That is the center of everything
who's your
we
customer?
do. So our customer is the injector that's purchasing Jeuveau and treating the consumer. That intermediary is everything to us. We built our whole business model. So when we talk about the consumer side, everything we do with the consumer is always in partnership with each customer. And that's the second part of what makes our business different. Because we're cash pay focused, we co-brand everything with the customer. You asked me earlier about our subscription program. It's always in partnership with you. So take example, your practice. When we partner with you, we partner with Dr. Diane with our subscription or our loyalty program. We partner with you if we advertise. It's a billboard with your face in your local market. And so it is very much about training you or your staff. And we have a dedicated team that goes in there and does that. So our entire business model is predicated on the fact that if you deliver a great outcome and you have a great partnership with us and we help grow your practice and we give you that modern edging branding that brings in the younger generation of consumers, then together we're going to build a meaningful business. And that is our business
What's
model.
performance beauty?
So simply put, the performance side are FDA approved products. And the beauty side of it is we didn't want to be pharma. So we shed every other aspect aside from the regulatory clinical side to get these drugs approved and stay compliant. Everything else of the inside of the company, the guts of it, it's a beauty company. And so by not being pharma, we believe the category is going to this place called performance beauty, where the consumer thinks of this as a beauty category. They don't think of this as a pharma category like any other therapeutic condition they have. By being cash pay focused, we can push the boundary of what performance beauty really is, which in my opinion, if you're using beauty products, you've got to start with the products that are FDA proven, and then you go to the over-the-counter
Okay, but then who's your target? If your performance beauty is beauty, who you look, because you said before millennials. So you're really narrowing your market here, aren't you?
Yeah, so initially at launch, the target was this younger generation of millennials, and the thought there was that's where we could add value, okay? Now, when you look at our user base in the US, we're clearly getting a significant amount of use from the older generation as well, because the millennials influence up, and the younger generation now that it's coming in as well. But our marketing and our advertising was heavily focused on that segment, because number one, that is the largest consumer buying group in the United States. Number two, it's the fastest growing segment for practices in the US. And today it represents a majority of the users with toxins. So we think collectively it was the right starting point to build the company and add value, but we're broadening now our breadth, and you can see that in our newer campaigns where we're more inclusive of different age groups as well.
Because I think like a millennial, even though I don't look like one.
Yeah, yeah.
But your products have great quality. In particular, the Jeuveau product is really well received, well known, and it's manufactured really well, from what I understand. So I want to go to Korea and see where it's actually made.
That's an interesting idea. Maybe we should do it.
You think we could do that?
Let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
I like it.
So we are finally here. We made it. We're here in Korea, and this is the door behind which a lot of the magic happens. I'm looking at that door, and I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm glad you guys are here with me, and we'll let you go in first.
Aren't you supposed to be the like masculine role in this relationship?
Yeah, but you know,
you can throw me to like.
Beauty before age. You know, chivalry still exists in this relationship.
Of course,
okay?
when it's convenient. Anyway, so Rui, tell us a little bit about what's behind here. I know we're going to try to get in.
So you're right, this is where all the magic happens. This is where we make what's called the drug substance.
Okay.
And the drug substance is really that active ingredient. And think about kind of making beer.
Okay.
Only in a really, really sophisticated form. You know, we take bacteria, and for making beer, you can take bacteria, it makes alcohol.
Right.
Well, this is a very special strain of bacteria. It's called a Clostridium botulinum
Yes.
bug.
And it's one of the most potent toxins in the world, right?
It is the most potent toxin in the world. It can make cyanide look like candy. So hence all the potency here.
But we're using micro doses.
Exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
And when we talk about microdoses, I mean, it's stunningly small. Little pieces of fact, like if you had a little bit of botulinum toxin the size of a grain of salt, you could treat 73,000 patients. And then think about the precision that happens here. When you take that tiny, like a grain of salt, if you'd imagine,
Right.
botulinum, you'd have to split that precisely into over 14,000 vials. That's the kind of precision we're dealing with.
So they're slicing it into 14,000 like parts in there. That's what's happening.
That's
I want to get in.
basically-
I want to see what kind of precision that takes.
Is that what goes on in here? Are they actually?
So this is where they're making the actual botulinum toxin, the Nuceivan Jeuveau, the active ingredient. And so basically, you take some cells from what's called a working cell bank, and you go through seeding and fermentation steps. And then you go through a bunch of processes where you kind of precipitate out and you clean it and then resuspend it, all these different processes to finally make stuff that you then distribute in vials, and we'll show that after. And probably the most important thing here is all these steps are highly, highly scrutinized. And we have what's called critical parameters. The specificity is amazing, like even just how specific they are in terms of how much the twirler spins at exactly what speed.
How much the what?
The things that spin
yeah.
around for your solutions, even those are highly regulated. Exactly how much time, the temperature, humidity, everything's tightly regulated.
Right,
here.
to not destabilize it.
Exactly.
Ultimately, because it has to be effective. And so how many grams are ultimately in the little vial that we use for our
They're
patients?
tiny. We're talking in the realm of nanograms. So
Nanograms.
it's really small.
All right.
And to your point, when you think about the injection, this stuff is just so potent that when you inject it, it is impossible to actually detect any of it in the bloodstream because the amounts are so tiny.
So that's a really important point, just so like for the people that are listening, and because patients come in sometimes and they're like, well, you know, this is a toxin, like how is this not going to affect the rest of me? So the amount that is in there has been determined to be enough to have a more localized effect, not a systemic effect. And so that's why we're in the nanogram amounts. And then also, to your point, there are no studies that show, and I think, Steve, you did a pretty good lit search and review on this, no studies to show that it's actually ever been found detectable in the blood.
Well, there's never been shown in a cosmetic use to cause a reaction that extends beyond the area.
The local area
Yeah.
that it's injected in.
But just to validate your point, it's the only drug I'm aware of that when you actually go through the FDA, which is high scrutiny, you don't look for it in the blood because it is undetectable. It's beyond detection of any technology we have.
And
That's
every
how small.
pharmaceutical agent is a toxin if at high doses. So You have to
So
recognize
another
that.
point to make to your right, like acetaminophen could be toxic to a certain degree. I mean, anything. It's all like the way that we look at it. I think that that's something that has been, like when people say natural. I mean, poison ivy is natural, but you don't go rubbing it all over yourself. So I think like putting things into context is also why we're here.
That's right.
So can we go in here?
Well, it is tight security, but you might as well give it a shot,
Yeah.
see how the system works.
Put that thumbprint of yours in there, babe. Declined. Denied.
I thought it was supposed to work.
Remember that one time where I stole your passport?
Yes. I do remember when you stole my passport.
It's
Oh,
only
yeah.
because I'm associated with you. Anyway,
So it's not so easy to get in here. Is that? I think that's the.
I can't go manipulate the cell culture, basically, is what you're telling me. All right, well, I think we had an opportunity to geek out a little bit more on the science. And so we're going to take you back to an interview that Rui and I had where we talked more about it. So if you guys want to take it away. Rui, I mean, it's been amazing. We got the beautiful tour of the facilities here in Newport. And there's so much in just the architectural design, but there's also a lot in the design of what makes Jeuveau. So tell everyone a little bit about the design and how it actually came about here in Santa Barbara, California.
Sure. So when we started this project and we were looking for a neurotoxin, we very specifically were looking for a 900 kilodalton molecule. And I think if we look at the broader body of knowledge, it would suggest that 900 is the standard. So we found one. A company called Daewoo made a drug called Nabota, which was a 900 kilodalton complex. And of course, South Korea is a hotbed for aesthetics.
Yes.
And that's where we found it. When we set up our deal and we went into this together, the next step was we had our drug, Jeuveau, made to our specifications.
Okay.
So what that meant was a whole revamp of things. So when we looked at things like quality systems, we introduced all sorts of things like in-process controls, different parameters. We even had an entire factory built, purpose-built, to meet the specifications of our drug and to meet the rigor of the major regulatory bodies like the FDA, EMA in Europe, Health Canada in Canada,
Right.
and MHRA in the UK.
And this plant in Korea, in Daewoo, very, high security facility, which you guys basically created that system so that it can be created there.
And we partnered with them to build this manufacturing plant to our specifications. It's all brand new machines, all state of the art. And then again, we changed a bunch of the manufacturing processes there.
And we're going to be seeing this plant in just a moment, guys. Amazing. And so here we are in one of the treatment rooms, another beautifully designed room, just like everything is here, immaculate. You guys have also been, innovating and changing the way you also teach others. So you've done the clinical trials, but it's disseminated that information through education that's so important. And so tell me a little bit of, about one of your educational efforts. I know there's like a tour bus that tours sometimes.
We do have a tour bus.
Yes.
And it's pretty blinged out and it's styled out and branded just like everything you see here in the office.
Right.
And it's sophisticated. We can do cadaver teachings on
Which
site.
you've done a lot with
That's
some
right.
of like the world leaders when it comes to anatomical teaching.
That's right. And we've got actually a treatment facility in there. And we've got the back part of the unit all decked out with ITs. We could actually even broadcast. And I think importantly, our head of medical affairs is actually a board certified plastic surgeon. If we look at the trainings that we've done and our commitment to trying to train, we've done literally thousands of training a year.
So how many places or cities has this bus been?
Oh, it's gone all throughout the United States at this point.
Amazing. I mean, people think, okay, this is just a neuromodulator we've been treating in this like standard injection pattern for now maybe over 20 years. But even then, there's so much to learn when it comes to the anatomy of what we're treating, to not take it for granted.
That's right. And that's where we invest. We invest in teaching people anatomy. So
Yes.
a lot of efforts put into it. And that's also why we actually bring in the real deal and actually use cadaveric heads.
Which is amazing. Now, when I was walking around here, I saw that there was this whole formula here and like one of the back walls. Can you walk me through there?
Sure.
Amazing. Now, I know that when you guys changed up some of your specifications, you guys went from freeze-dried to vacuum-dried. Tell me, I mean, we see this in so many of these educational meetings and conferences that some toxins are one way and some are the other. What is that? Why? What does it matter?
So that's a really important question. One of the things, and one of the significant things that we changed in the manufacturing process, if we think about it, a neuromodulator is a delicate protein. It's got over 1,000 amino acids in it. And one of the steps was freeze drying. Now, when you freeze dry, you actually make ice crystals. And ice crystals have the potential to denature or actually hurt, destroy your protein. So you may have protein in there, but it may be not working.
Correct.
It's not
bioavailable.
Exactly.
It may not be bioavailable.
And it's actually considered an impurity and may actually cause antibody production, along with not working.
Got it.
So one of the things that's done when you freeze dried is you add what's called an overage. Because you know you're going to lose some product, you add some additional product in to compensate for that denaturing that the crystals cause.
Okay.
So that's the price you pay when you use freeze dry. So when we move to vacuum dry.
Did you guys get that? I hope you got that. So some added product that you have there that to compensate for the fact that it was frozen dried and the fact that perhaps not everything may be bioavailable once you actually go to use the product.
That's right. So your protein content number may be higher, but it doesn't mean that all the protein actually works.
Yes.
And in fact, some of that protein may be a liability because it's denatured, it's considered impurities, and it does you no good.
Okay.
Now, when you vacuum dry, by definition, you don't form any crystals.
Okay.
And because you don't form any crystals, the way we set up the algorithm for the vacuum drying, the pressure, the temperature, the timing, everything else, we're able to actually create without denaturing. And so we don't have to add extra protein because we really don't destroy any.
Which might mean a decrease in the production or possibility of antibody formation.
Correct.
Wonderful.
So to prove that point, as we were going through these large registration studies, we did some phase 2 studies, which were long-term year repeat dose, and we did a number of phase 3 studies.
Okay.
And one of the studies that we did was with the freeze-dried formula. Now, that's not a formula that we sell.
Right.
And sure enough, we found antibody production with a freeze-dried. Not neutralizing antibodies, but general antibodies.
After just one injection session?
After like a year of treatments.
Wow, okay.
In contrast, when we looked at all the studies and piled up literally thousands of samples with the vacuum dried, which is our final commercial,
correct,
there were no antibodies, no general antibodies, no neutralizing antibodies. So we're really happy we made that decision to shift away.
So there you go, guys. There is a big difference when you're choosing between something that's freeze-dried versus something that is vacuum-dried. Amazing. I mean, for all the times that we lecture on things, I've never gotten that level of science behind it. So thank you, Rui.
There you go.
And so we're walking behind this amazing wall. And so, you know, we're going to be seeing how it's all manufactured in Daewoo, but basically you have given them the specifications on how to do it. Tell me about high pure technology.
So it's part of our process. It starts obviously with the bacteria and a fermentation step, and we make the toxin. And then there are a series of steps where we basically go ahead and isolate the toxin and get rid of impurities. And the purification gets more and more and more sophisticated. And the high pure technology includes a couple or a number of pretty novel steps.
Okay.
So for instance, near the end, when you start putting things through what's called an anion column, where the toxin flows through and you can get rid of the impurities. We don't do it just once, we actually go through these multiple times.
Wow.
And then another interesting thing that we do is we actually reverse the polarity of those anion columns to actually kind of take another shot at removing the impurities.
Wow.
So what you end up with is a real high purity product with at least a 95% purity profile when we release it.
When you say like 95% pure of what?
So your 900 kilodalton
Yes.
is the product you want.
Okay.
So in each one of those vials,
Yes.
it's a minimum of 95% purity.
So there you go, guys. I mean, some of the things that we take for granted every day with how many of these bottles we're opening and you don't even think of that. So that's amazing. And then something that I found really interesting, and I think it's like almost you see it through everything, through the design of this beautiful facility, through many of the marketing efforts. You guys have really aimed to increase the market, not necessarily take, market share, but really
increase the market by going towards novel users, millennials. And so we're not such a novel users anymore. I guess I'm technically considered a millennial. But what I find that is so interesting is that you guys did post hoc analysis of that phase 3 clinical trial data, and you found, tell me a little bit about the millennial population in that trial.
Yeah, first thing I want to acknowledge is your opening point. I mean, this is a really interesting market.
Yes.
You know, by most measures, we're maybe 10% penetrated.
Right.
And, you know, we have companies who've done a wonderful job at creating this market. Having said that, if you look at most of the clinical trials and most of the data, the typical patient is a female in her 50s.
Yep.
And so we were very interested in trying to expand that market.
Right.
So as you could see, we really target not only the millennial, but the young at heart.
Yes.
So there are a number of people who chronologically may have one age. So what we did, when we looked at glabellar lines and millennial data, we really were hard pressed to find any. So we did a post hoc analysis, pooled all our data so that we could actually compare how that typical patient, 50-year-old or so,
right,
compared to the millennials.
Yes.
And we found some really interesting things.
Okay.
So first, we just asked flat out, when you use a validated scale and you look at, you know, glabellar lines, the millennial does better than that older patient. Now, that shouldn't be too much of a surprise because we know that, you know, the toxin uptake is good, and we know we're just suppressing the muscular contraction. And we know with age, toxin efficacy can drop a little bit. The other interesting thing we looked at was we asked, how about the aesthetic benefit? When you ask an investigator, they thought the older and the younger population had great aesthetic benefits.
Right.
Okay, what happens when you ask the patient themselves? So when we asked the older patient, they were very happy and high scores on aesthetic benefit.
Right.
What happens when you ask a millennial to opine upon themselves about the aesthetic benefit? You know, are we destined for failure? Is the expectation such that it isn't going to work? Much to our surprise,
yes,
we actually saw 100% scores in aesthetic improvement and statistical superiority between that younger and the older patient. And then we asked an even broader question, and that is, what about subject satisfaction? We know the toxins do really well with subject satisfaction.
Yes.
We know that it's one of the highest retention markers
right,
when you use a toxin.
Right.
So again, that older patient does really well from subject satisfaction all the way to the trials.
Yes.
But it's a very open-ended question. Are you satisfied, very satisfied? What does that really mean? Does that mean you're happy? Does it mean, you know, I need to be happy if my friends like? What does it mean?
Right, yes. Patient-reported outcomes. It's amazing. We just did an event on that. Yep.
And what we found was the millennial, even higher. We saw 100% scores, and we actually saw statistical superiority compared to the older patient. So we're really amazed with that. And then ultimately, I mean, you and Dr. Dan are experts in this, but we started to think a little bit about,
yeah,
I mean, we've seen the literature that shows if you use a toxin, your mood improves. We know that as people age, that neuromuscular junction can degenerate a little bit. So maybe that's why, if you think about just an impact on the muscle, uptake into the muscle, that's why we see that.
Yes.
Well, if it's true that toxin use actually can make you feel better, and if the younger population has more intact neuromuscular junction, maybe this mood thing is actually related.
Right.
Interesting question. We have no idea.
That we don't know. Some people think it's like, you know, just because of biofeedback mechanisms. But your point about how those junctions are degenerating with age is another extremely interesting point that I've never really thought about. But for the consumer, you know, for the doctor or provider that's listening and watching, if you start to think about, gosh, I really want to build a business based on patient satisfaction and retention. When you're younger, you also have less confounding variables that you look at in the mirror that perhaps make you feel like you look older or make you less satisfied with the way that you look. And so then if you only have one or two issues, which are maybe some glabellar lines, and you at least make that better, then that's a really good population to treat. And so I think that you had a little bottle.
Oh,
okay.
Just so happens I did. If you had a grain of toxin the size of a grain of salt, talk about precision, you would have to split that grain into over 14,000 equal parts.
Wow. So think about that, guys. Like, I can't even imagine the precision that it takes to cut that into 14,000 parts. A grain of salt. That's a big grain of salt. Amazing.
Yeah, another piece, a grain of salt would treat, a toxin size of grain would treat 73,000 patients.
There you go. That's all you need. A great perspective where a grain of salt is all you really need to even build a practice. Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
I appreciate it.
Wow, did I tell you how attractive you are when you geek out?
I'm a nerd at heart.
Yes, you are.
And no one better to nerd out with than Rui. I mean, I learned so
You love
much.
hanging out with the nerds, don't you?
I do. You're not a nerd, Rui. I just want to be very
Wait,
clear.
listen, so when
what
you were in
is
high
this?
school, which group were you in?
I was friends with everyone, but I'd say I was.
Which
pretty,
table did you sit at?
I don't know what. I
It was like
wasn't-
the jocks, there's the
No.
burnouts, there's the
No.
geeks, there's the band people.
We were popular. We were a popular group of people,
You were just popular in all the groups.
but we were nice, popular people.
All right,
I got
well,
friends with everybody. I was in all the AP classes, so I was naturally friends with the nerds.
very good. That's
Yes.
why you always like nerds.
I do.
But how
I
come you like
appreciate
me? I'm not a nerd.
You are a nerd. Even though we're in the locker room, which is your territory, right? But
That's
nevertheless.
right. Well, we're in the locker room because this is quality control.
Yep. And so, we've just seen how we couldn't even access the Cellvank. But there's a lot more steps than just extracting the toxin from the Clostridium botulinum. And so here we are, where more measures are taking place so that we can make sure that whatever eventually lands in our office is what we call high pure technology, right?
That's right. So the manufacturing process has many, many, many steps. And like I mentioned, there's all sorts of specifications, and I mentioned the word in-process controls and another thing called critical parameters. And it goes through all these steps where you go through the fermentation, then you isolate, and then all these purification steps. But then you have to prove that the stuff is actually high pure and meets all the specifications that all the major regulatory bodies are asking for. And this is where it gets done.
And so, so that's really interesting because here, we're learning more and more about antibody formation. Consumers are becoming more and more sensitive to this too, and you almost wonder if sometimes it's the impurities in some of these, in some of the drugs that we're getting that lend to, not Jeuveau, but just in general, is that could potentially be what is lending to some antibody formation?
In general, that's right. So, you want a protein that is responsible for efficacy.
Right.
And during manufacturing processes, if some of the protein gets damaged or becomes denatured, it doesn't really help you. It's not efficacious.
Right.
And sometimes those proteins that have been bent or changed can be a little bit immunogenic. So general rule of thumb is the less protein, the better. The high the purity, the better.
So when you talk about high pure technology, and that's unique to Jeuveau and Nuceiva, what is high pure?
So it's a broad term for us, and it involves many, many steps. And it starts from things like putting it through special filters, through how we isolate it, how we clean it, and then we run things like the solution through what's known as anion columns, and they have kind of a charge. So the toxin will go through, and then the impurities that are charged get pulled off along the way. And what we do here is actually not just run it once, we actually run it more than once, and we do things to kind of even bring up more impurities out. We reverse the polarity and change the charge to actually get out more stuff.
I think this is really important because recently there's been cases of fake botulinum toxin being used in the US, and actually people getting really hurt by that. So knowing that your product is well controlled and made well is critically important to what we give to our patients.
And who it's coming from? I think there were like 2 cases in Chicago alone, right, where
people using fake botulinum toxin, yeah.
and then having repercussions for the patients that were treated by it. And so we have to keep that in mind, that ultimately what you said, it's the most potent toxin in the world, right? So
That's right.
Being thoughtful of how it's manufactured is extremely important for the safety of our patients.
Right.
So are you going to walk us through what they're doing here?
Let me show you what
All right,
quality
I
control
love
looks
it.
like. So this is a facility that's above a lot of the manufacturing. And one piece of trivia is we take a lot of pride in terms of how much is invested in quality control. And when you look at the organization in terms of how many people work here, a little piece of trivia, like 50% of the employees here are actually quality control. So that's a huge investment to making sure to bring us the assurance of the quality of the products.
And so here, what happens in this area?
So when the product is checked, we look for all sorts of different things. We look at things like, the pH, the humidity. We look at total protein. We look at things like how much specific protein is botulinum toxin. We look for things like bioburden, and then a number of other things. We look at things like purity to make sure that it meets at least a minimum of 95%. So all these things are checked.
95% of what? What does that mean?
So when we look at the botulinum toxin, the specific botulinum toxin is a 900 kilodalton molecule, and it's actually a dimer. And so we look to make sure that that is what's most in the vial. So a little fact, the release specifications, it must be a minimum of 95%. And we watch all the lots that come out. And so far for Jeuveau and Nuceiva, they always come out at about
So does
98.
everyone get the same quality in their
Right.
biotoxin, regardless of where they are in the world, whether it's Nuceiva or Jeuveau? Can they
That's right.
count on that?
The Nuceiva and Jeuveau have to be released through our final quality systems. And yes, when you have that, you can count on it's met all those specifications.
And
Otherwise,
do all
it wouldn't be
toxin
released.
companies go through this, where it has to where a minimum of 95%?
Each company will have their own,
Their
so you'd have to go to
The
standard.
where they
FDA
go.
only requires like 25%. Is that, or up to 75%? Isn't there some regulation by the FDA about how much quality control you have to prove for consistency between vials, or am I wrong?
Are you talking about efficacy or
Yeah.
units?
I think it's efficacy.
Yeah, so when you go through the FDA, they're all the specifications that you've committed to. And so you commit to them, and they will come by and do audits to make sure that you're meeting every one of them. There's many of them. One that I think you may be referring to is just units of activity. How many units of activity are in a vial? But that's just one of them. You have to make sure that everything is within the specifications that you assigned and that you committed to during the approval process.
So when someone says, "Oh, it didn't work for me this time," can we say, "Well, the product just wasn't that good that time," or is that not something that you can say because it's always consistent?
It's interesting. There are lots of parameters that come in, and you're probably the experts here. We know that, funny enough, sometimes technique can be a part of it.
Right.
We also know that during the time of COVID was really interesting. We saw that having a COVID vaccine, if you believe the data at Israel, may have impacted the efficacy of the product. We know that tetanus is something that looks like botulinum toxin, so that may complicate certain things. We also know that the solution that you mix your toxin in, not all solutions are the same. So on label, you should be using just sterile saline. We do know that some practices will get sterile saline, or they'll use something with preservatives. And we've seen that those different manufacturers may actually impact your potency also. So multi-contributors.
Amazing. And so what are they doing here?
So
지금 어떤 시험 하시고 있나요? 저는 나부터 엘라이자 시험하고 있습니다.
I'm doing ELISA protein test.
So the ELISA protein test is one that looks specifically for the botulinum toxin content. And again, it's a very sensitive test, and here you're literally counting the number of molecules in a vial. Another test that's done is a bigger one for total protein that may include the stabilizers, and that uses a slightly different test, something called the Bradford method.
Does every vial get tested?
So all the batches get tested. You cannot release, we do not release a batch unless everything is tested and meets the specifications.
Amazing. So just, for the audience to kind of know how much is involved in ensuring how pure the toxin is. And that's the reason why there are only so many available in the United States in the end, right? There are so many in the world, but only really a couple make it through the regulations to be able to be FDA approved and available in the US. So thank you so much for walking us through this. And this is just one of the places where quality control is done. Even in the manufacturing line, once all of this has been confirmed, then we actually go to the manufacturing line where you're going to see some of the quality metrics that are imposed there to ensure that the same quality from cell banking and extraction to confirming protein count to then when it's actually being put into the vial are all met and held at the same standard. So we're going to walk you through there.
All right.
Wow, quality control. That was super impressive with what Rui was showing us. I can never imagine how much goes into actually making sure this product is so pure.
Of course. I mean, ultimately, it's something that we're injecting into our patients. And so for our patients, the things that are ultimately FDA approved and brought into the country, really go through some rigorous quality metrics.
But it doesn't just end there.
It's even in the manufacturing line. So here, walk us through a little bit about what we're seeing. I mean, people are gowning up and they're actually sterilizing their sterile gloves. Yes. I've never seen anything like that. Are you doing that in surgery?
Not to that extent.
Okay.
So before they get to the production part, they sterile their sterile gloves one more time.
Okay, wonderful.
And then what else?
And then what else? I mean, we're seeing these agar plates. Tell us a little bit about what those are showing.
So that media plate is for settle plate sampling, and we have actually 4 types of environmental monitoring. So we do non-viable particulate sampling, settle plate sampling, contact plate sampling, and then viable airborne particulate sampling.
It sounds like a lot of sampling to me.
Yes.
For every person that walks in.
Yes.
And the room itself too, to make sure that there's nothing in the room.
Yes. So we have to ensure that we have right environment for the production.
Right, and from there, now I see us that they're moving into the formulation room.
Yes.
And so here in this formulation room, walk us through what we're seeing here.
So formulation is basically combining drug substance with excipient in order to create final solution. And after we do first filtration and second filtration, we actually get the final solution that we put into the vial.
So where's the secret part about what you guys do that no one else does? Where can we see that? Or is that hidden?
So we have patented high pure technology in our drug substance area. Mm-hmm. And with that technology, we make sure that our botulinum product is highly pure.
Great, and so that's a little bit of that secret sauce is happening in there.
Yes.
Okay.
So we can't go all the way back in there, can we?
I mean, that's why there's so many layers to get there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And so once the product has gone through there, now it's running through
this is filling.
The filling.
Right?
And I mean, obviously it's been the vials that they're filled into have even been washed and sterilized. And so once they go through that process, you can actually see them being filled here. And so tell us a little bit about this process.
So after vials are washed and sterilized, they are sent to this filling area. And this is where they are filled with an actual solution. So the actual solution, the final formulated solution, is dispensed into vials, and then vials are half stoppered afterwards. And then they are sent to lyophilizer where they are vacuum dried. And after they are vacuum dried, we have this cake on the bottom of the vial, and then we start full capping of that vial.
Now the vacuum dry is a very important part of your secret sauce, right?
Yes.
I mean, we learn about it all the time. Rui did such a great job covering this. But when things are frozen dry, you get these crystals that end up precipitating and potentially creating an impurity with your end product. And here, this is another thing that ensures a highly pure product.
Yes. And another part of this vacuum drying is that we get shorter operation time and process time. So it is much more efficient.
Right.
Yes.
For a much higher quality product.
Yes, with much higher quality.
Amazing.
Product.
And so after we've gone through this, walk us through where that final product actually
is packaged. So this is where the labeling and packaging takes place.
Yes, this is packaging area.
And what exactly is going on in here?
So with vial printing machine, we print out the batch number, the lot number to each vial in order to prevent any mix-up. And then we use automatic external inspection machine to ensure that there is no defect to each vial. And then people do 100% manual visual inspection.
Amazing.
In order to see and check that there is no error in every single vial. And then packaging begins.
The thing how important is that lot number, because in the US we had this issue where people were using fake botulinum toxins. So that lot number is critically important. Everyone should check to make sure you have a lot number on there, because you know it's actually coming from this plant.
Right, and it's like a form to confirm.
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. I'll never look at a Jeuveau vial the same again.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
Wow, what an impressive manufacturing line. What an impressive place to see. David, thank you so much for having us. I think I really understand performance beauty now. You've always been talking about it. Now I get what performance beauty is. I understand why Jeuveau is one of the fastest growing toxins in the market. It makes sense, don't you think?
I mean, it completely makes sense. There's so much involved. And I think that for those that are, don't do it at home, try to create your own toxin, you realize what's involved in doing that, in making a toxin and making it so special. with how you've done it here. So thank you so much for having us.
Well, thank you for coming, and I'm glad your audience got a chance to see it all firsthand and behind the scenes. And you see what goes into building a performance beauty company. And we're now in the next stage with an entirely new line of products, which we're going to be filing with the FDA here in very short order. So at some point in the future, you'll learn a little bit more about a new product called Evolus in the US and Esteem in Europe. And look, we're really excited to be sharing our story.
That's a filler product.
It's a new hyaluronic acid filler product that's not available around the world yet.
Wow, you heard that here first, guys.
Evolus, I love it. Congratulations on all your success on growing so rapidly and coming out with a toxin and then having a filler coming with it in like just 5 short years. Not a lot of people have been able to do that, and it's really a testament to your commitment, to your vision, and to the team of people that you guys have.
I love the creative engineering that's happening in Newport
and
the quality products that happens here in Korea and how you've merged that together. That's really impressive to me.
Thank you.
It's really a differentiator.
So hopefully you guys have been able to really, see what's behind this brand. It's more than just marketing. It's everything that you've seen. Thank you for joining us on our ride with you guys, for welcoming us to your home. I think you really get to learn about a company and about anyone when you come into their home. And so hopefully you guys have seen just a bit of what makes Evolus, Evolus.
We'll see you guys back home, huh?
All right. Sounds great.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Shopping?
Definitely.
Oh, Korean barbecue.
I'm going to pass on the Korean barbecue. I think I definitely want my hyaluronic acid mask.
Oh, gosh.